To all who come to this happy place,
Welcome.
welcome.
Well, come in.
Let's put on the show.
Your cadaverous pallor
Aloha.
betrays an aura of foreboding.
Hang on to them hats and glasses.
And now, ladies and gentlemen,
Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.
Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant day to you wherever you may be. My name is Robert,
I'm David.
I'm Inthia.
I'm Susie.
and today we are going to talk about some rituals. If you're obsessive compulsive like myself, I'm just kidding.
That's self-diagnosed, isn't it?
Yeah.
But today we're going to be talking about some habits, some things that you must do every time you go to a Disney park.
I think it sort of came up because I think when we first met, was probably you that brought it up because it seems like a very you topic. But it was like, which way do you go under the train? Do you go to the left or to the right?
Well, that's going to be my first note.
But it was things like that where
Yeah.
we had these particular things that we did. And I think
Yeah.
at the time we joked, if you don't do it that way, you're doing Disneyland wrong.
And, that is true. I did have all of these little things that I would have to do every time. But, once I got an annual pass, that kind of goes out the door because you go so often and you go for such a little amount of time sometimes that you can't do everything that you would do if you go once or twice a year and do a full day. For instance, for me, the first thing is when I would go to Disneyland when I was a kid, up until I got an annual pass, I would always have to enter through the left tunnel underneath the train. Do you guys have a favorite tunnel?
We always enter through the... No, we don't. We enter through the right.
Yeah, now since having an annual pass, we come later. And the later in the day you go, they kind of make you go
Yeah.
through the right tunnel.
But even if they don't, we still go through the right.
Yeah, now we do. But in the old days...
Yeah, now.
In the old days, they used to always go to the left.
We've been together for 8 years. We go through the right, so it's not like it's a new thing.
I said in the old days, before I had an annual pass.
I do think they switched it about 10 years ago when they started routing people to the right. And I was so opposed to it. And maybe this is just a me and Robert thing, but I was so opposed to it when they first started making people go through the right. It felt so wrong.
Yeah, and the biggest reason why I do enjoy going to the right now is because you can take a quick trip into the Disney Gallery. Now, also, the Disney Gallery wasn't there until, about 10 years ago or something. Even to this day, if they're not routing us to the right, I'd still prefer to go to the left.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just not going to voice my opinions and make you go to the
Well, a lot of times, too,
surprising.
they reserve those left gates for exit queues.
That's true. You
Yeah.
also enter on the right side now, so you have to make a big trek. You have to avoid the big line of people taking their pictures in front of the floral Mickey.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to tell you how to do Disneyland right. And the way to do Disneyland right is by doing it left. You start at the left and go around.
This is true.
So
True. It is counter to what everyone else does.
when I was a kid and people would go to Disneyland and they would just run to Space Mountain, I was so angry when people would go to Tomorrowland first. The trick is you walk down Main Street, you make a left, and you go to Adventureland. Now, what you do is you go straight to Pirates of the Caribbean, the best ride ever made. So you go towards Pirates of the Caribbean, but if there is no line for Jungle Cruise and or Indiana Jones, you're allowed to do those first. But if there is a line, you go straight to Pirates, then Haunted Mansion, then Splash Mountain if it's not a long line. And
This is funny because I think we did this a lot in college, and I was so on board with you, except I can almost always skip Splash Mountain.
Well, it depends on the day. It depends if you're in the mood. Splash Mountain's not a must because it does involve a little bit more. Yeah, so you do the west side, you go to the Frontierland, then you go to Fantasyland, and you end with Tomorrowland, and then you go back for seconds. And then you go back for thirds on Pirates. Speaking of Pirates, I have some habits inside Pirates. Would you like to hear about those?
Yes.
I have a pirate one if I can chime in.
Yeah, get in there.
Okay.
What?
I want to get one of those hand counters that like bouncers use at the club, because I count the chickens in the auction scene, like habitually, and I am always around 33. But there's times that I'm in 27, and then sometimes I'm like almost to 40, and I'm like, what's happening?
Well, they could be gone.
And I do think there are more chickens now than there ever have been, because it's very difficult for me now.
Well, now with this whole auction scene change, and now they're very much emphasizing chickens. Yeah.
That's right. 'Cause, yeah.
Selling her chickens.
Yeah, Big Blues roll upset.
So yeah, and it's tough because sometimes there's chickens that are laying down inside those little crates that they're in, and then like you just kind of count the heads that are popping, and then you got to look on top of the like just posts. There's chickens on posts, and then once you pass under the bridge, those also count. So they're up there, way up beyond the fountain, and
Do you count them in the next scene too?
That's the next scene.
The chase.
Chasing?
Yeah,
So
correct.
Do you always count the one that's on top of the light post above the guy?
Yes.
The poop pirate?
Yes. It's a very difficult task that I've been doing for at least 10 years.
I have a list of things that I look for in Pirates of the Caribbean, and I will list them off for you. I'm not going to count things that you would normally see, like looking at the auctioneer, the stuff that's right there front and center. These are things that I specifically make a note to look at and go, there it is. So, so the first is going in the Blue Bayou. I always have to look to my left and see the floating alligator. You remember the alligator?
Yes.
There's a little alligator. And then if you look up at the sky, I look for that shooting star.
Yeah, I do like looking for the shooting
It's not always there. Last time I went, it wasn't there. Then you go down the waterfall and you're in the caves. Once you round the corner, past the skeleton turning the wheel, if you look back to your left, you can look through a small opening in the caves, and you can see the skeleton with the bird in his hat from the previous scene.
Now, when I also look at that, but I have never been able to see back through.
I did once.
Oh, you did?
You probably have to have like someone really tall in the boat to see them.
Yeah, right.
But I guess, I should be able to see. No, I guess someone has to be tall, because when you're looking at the skeleton from the other side, you can't really see the boat below. Right. But I did see their heads one time. I was pretty excited. In the treasure room scene, there's a little face that's near the water. At one point, it was actually kind of in the water. I think it's a little bit higher right now, but it's like a stone face, and I like to look at that face. Then we keep going.
His face.
Nothing so much in the cannonball scene that's out of the ordinary. Everything's pretty much.
You want to look for the hidden Mickey and
the yeah.
bricks?
I'm not really counting hidden Mickeys.
Do you ever look for when cast members are walking along the horizon?
Well, I try to avoid that. I see that sometimes, and it ruins the illusion for me. I hate that. One time we went on, and they're shining a bright flashlight at us.
Ew.
Because they were looking for like an empty
around?
boat that they were going to put behind us.
They were looking for, because they mark certain boats with like a white little thing, and they were looking for that boat. But instead they were just blinding us all. This is not Pirates. I'm sorry to talk outside of Pirates, but in general, I look for cast members in the shadows. And one time we were on It's a Small World, and I was staring in the shadows, and I hear someone go, "Hello." I almost screamed so loud.
Scary.
And I go, "Hi." There's a cast member standing in the shadows.
So
doing what?
I don't remember.
I don't know. He was just standing there.
It was Hoot Gibson. Maybe it was Hoot Gibson.
The next thing that I do on Pirates is the well scene. The first thing I look for is I look up at the window where, what's her face?
Rosina.
No. Does she have a name?
Why did I think that was also her
I
name?
don't know. As soon as I said it, I'm like,
From
Matt.
Tiki Room.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, where the mayor's wife opens the window, Carlos's wife. One of the pirates shoots at her. And in the old days, the pots in front of the window used to break apart, and then they would mold themselves back together. And I always look for that effect because it hasn't worked for at least 10 years, and I'm waiting for the day it fixes itself.
it's not going to fix itself, but they're going to fix it.
Then I also look to make sure that the well scene is working correctly. If you notice, when he's being dunked, there's water coming out of the sides of the well. There's like these little spouts. And then you'll notice there's water that is going from the well down through the scene and into the river that you're riding through. I always liked that. And there's been times where maybe the audio was a little bit lower than usual, and I could hear that water going into the river. Then I make a quick look to my left, and I look up in the balcony in where the auction scene begins. And my favorite lamp in the attraction is there. It's this little round lamp that's molded to have this kind of nice shape to it. And there's been a few times I've been on it where the light burned out and they didn't fix the light, and it really upsets me. And I think to myself, are they ever going to fix it? Well, one day they fixed it, and the light was back, and I was so happy. Then when we
Then
go,
I count the chickens.
This isn't a ride through of pirates.
Oh, these are the things he loves. These are rituals.
yeah, yes. David looks for the chickens, and then in the chase scene, I look to the left, and I like to look at that little painting that you see in the room where the pirates chasing the women. When the singing trio is singing, I always make sure to look at their feet, because one time I went on the ride and the pirate's shoe wasn't down far enough, and you could see his sock, his whole foot covered in a sock under his shoe.
Oh, that's funny.
So I want to see if I ever see that again, because I thought that was funny. Then I keep going. Of course, I look at the hairy leg or the dirty foot, but everyone does that, so that's not even worth mentioning.
But you just did.
I did. Then we go to the jail scene, and I always look for the skeleton. Well, the two skeletons, actually. There's one in the foreground that's very dark and hard to see, but if you get the background to be the fire and the certain light, you can kind of make it out. Then you keep going. I do like to look at the cannon to your right that's facing right at you. Sometimes there's a brighter light on it than usual, and when there is a bright light on it, it's very uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable having this firing mechanism right at your face. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Everything else is what everyone else would look at usually. Except I'm sure I look for more stuff too, but that's all I want to mention.
That was a revelation.
All right. What else do we have?
I wish I could include photos.
Should we go in the Haunted Mansion? Well, I have an old ritual.
I might ride the ride though with this episode on one day. Gotta catch them all. Do you want us to do a ride through commentary? Let us know in the comments below.
I used to always want to go to the steps that's now part of Club 33, which there's a rumor that that's not going to be part of Club 33 soon, and it will be back. We'll see.
Well, is that the rumor?
The Court of Angels.
I thought the rumor was just that something,
Wicked
whatever.
this way
That was
comes.
the rumor.
Okay.
While walking to Critter Country, I do like to go through that little back area, the secret passageway,
Oh
I
yeah,
call
I
it.
always forget that it's there.
Oh,
Wanna go
the
through this?
walkway.
On the other side of Fowler's Harbor.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, this is an overall thing, just when I'm at Disneyland, my one must is Pirates of the Caribbean. It has to happen every time. But Haunted Mansion is usually thrown in there too, where I have to do that. I do like to do the Disneyland Railroad every time, but that doesn't always happen. But those are my three big ones.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have rides that you go on every single time that you must go on?
I have to go on Pirates because I'm married to you. But I mean, it's true. Not to say that I wouldn't go on it, but I never thought that it was something that I had to do every single time I was there.
Is there anything you have to do every time?
No.
How about sitting in the caboose of Casey Jr.? Is that a must?
If I'm on Casey Jr., yes.
Yeah, that's a must for me.
Thing
To
that
have-
I do enjoy.
To have a nice romantic evening with you as we
Riding
glide
backwards, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Glide backwards through the town of Casey Jr. And then you look and you see Pinocchio's little village, and there's Geppetto's workshop.
Yeah.
I like Haunted Mansion.
What do you like about it?
Well, I just mean in terms of like a ride that I have to do every time.
Yeah.
I'd say Haunted Mansion's that for me.
Yeah. I get very depressed when I don't go on my musts.
And you know what's funny is I'm trying to think at California Adventure, is there any must for me? Yeah, I don't think so. There's no musts.
No.
I must touch the apple in the Snow White queue.
Every time you go by it.
Yeah. I have to take a picture of Pirates of the Caribbean at least once
Really?
every time.
He takes a picture of it every single time when you walk by it.
Not every time we walk by it, but every trip.
I definitely think we have like our share of castle photos, obviously. And I mean, at least it has a new paint job. How often does that happen with Pirates?
I don't know, but there's always something different. The trees are growing differently. Lights are out. Someone may have done, I don't know, whatever. And it's always a different time of day.
Sure.
How many times are you going to take a picture at the exact same time? 1 minute looks different from the next.
Sure.
And sometimes there might be a bunch of people in line, maybe no one in line. Every picture is different.
Susie, do you have any traditions things that you almost do by habit or?
I mean, I know that the episode is about traditions. I don't know that I'm that particular.
Sure.
I do find what tends to happen, and this probably has a lot to do with being with Wes when I go most of the time. We go through phases where it's almost like we have I wouldn't call it a tradition in the sense that it comes and goes to what it is that we have to do. So I mean, I would say pretty consistently we go on Haunted Mansion every visit, if not more than once. Like for a while he wanted to do the train every time, and for a while more recently he's wanted to do a lot of the Main Street vehicles. But I don't know. I'm just
that was never appointment attractioning for you.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think for a while even I'm not meticulous on any of the rides. I don't count anything. I don't know. I just enjoy.
How about this?
Being there.
When I think you're with me on this. When the queue to enter Disneyland is long, but the gate in the middle is open, you go there.
You mean I always use that gate?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess so. Well, I guess this is sort of something we do. I always try to look for our brick. So that's kind of a tradition.
That is.
I like go see
Which
the
is
brick.
it's just right of center underneath the the monorail.
I would almost say most visits we park hop. I feel like the last few times we haven't. And it's interesting because typically, not that again it's a tradition or a must or a whatever, but when it goes back with being an AP, right?
You're an apple?
And when park hopping, we usually do California Adventure first, I feel like.
Yeah. But again, I mean, nothing is, I'm just not,
I'm
not going to be mad about anything.
I mean, I'm not mad.
It's the
just,
comfort.
that's
No,
the tradition.
you used the word upset.
Well, I would be upset if I didn't go on Pirates. I guess that's true. Inthia has one that I just thought of, which also involves Pirates of the Caribbean. She always has to go to the right-hand side in the line.
Oh,
Yeah, I
yes.
don't like the
That is a
left.
good point. Yeah. Right side, tight side. For sure.
Now-
Same thing with me for Mansion. Now you
can choose.
Yeah.
Really. But, yeah, Mansion would always be the right side, too. Pirates, I don't really have a preference. I
This
like
is
the
actually just a Pirates episode.
I'm just going to bring it back to Pirates real quick.
I like the right side of the line because it seems faster, but I do like going in that little area back there.
I
know you
don't.
don't so much.
I
It's like claustrophobic.
but then,
I don't like
when people
people-
knock on that door.
Okay. Yeah. I just don't like being back there with so many
It's
people.
tight.
It's gross. There's a lot of stinky air from people's butts, and it's just not my favorite.
Now, there's a couple other choices of picking lines. Jungle Cruise and Indiana Jones. Do you have a preference on those?
Sorry.
I
for the
definitely
noise.
have a Jungle Cruise preference.
Which is... All right, we'll go at the same time. 1, 2, 3.
Left.
That was good.
Because, you know why?
It's short.
Because
Water
you don't,
side.
Well, water side, you don't want to be stuck on the middle seats. And the left side will never put you on the middle seats.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, the left side is shorter. You get on the boat quicker.
That's true. I wouldn't say it's a tradition for the Matterhorn which side, because I'll take either side, but I prefer the left side.
Yeah.
I don't have a preference for Matterhorn. Do you,
I
Susan?
don't ride it.
Yeah.
So
Now, what about you, Anthea?
that's a tradition.
People in the
Avoid.
shadows.
I feel like we have traditions that of particularly like stores we have to visit, and
But we're falling out of them a bit. Like we always
Yeah.
used to go into the China closet. on our way out.
Yeah.
I always go in there. On Haunted Mansion, I'll call back at the Raven when you're going backwards. I don't know why.
You do that.
I just always call back at it. I don't really can't think of anything that I do. When they used to do the hand stamp, it was a scented lemon hand stamp. So even if we weren't going back in there, I have a friend, she and I would always get it and we would smell it because we really like that smell. And then we really like the smell of the hand soap in the bathrooms before it changed to a non-smelling smell. And I got to have a travel size bottle of it. I took it to the park and just filled it up. So I have that around. But yeah.
I will say our friend Cindy has a tradition on Pirates of the Caribbean. When Barbossa says, "Fire at will," she says, "Not Will Turner, shoot Elizabeth." Remember?
She does.
When I exit the park every night or every day, I do look at Walt's lamp.
I have some
I
friends
think about Walt.
that thank Walt via that lamp. They'll say thanks, Walt, on their way out.
That's nice.
Random, but it's, I would say, dare I say, tradition. We walk typically to the park from the structure.
Oh, yeah.
And back.
We pretty much do that every time.
Yeah.
No matter how tired we are.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely
we always
back.
walk
We
back.
always walk back. Always.
And it's like such a weird thing. But yeah, I don't know. I really can't think of anything that is...
Yeah.
I'm a pretty go with the flow. I feel like even every time we've had people like in town or who just bought a day ticket or whatever, and it's always like, oh, what do you guys like? What do you want to do? Or like, what do you, I don't know how they phrase it.
They
Like,
ask
what do you
us
guys
to,
like to do? What should we do?
How do we do the parks?
And it's like, well, of course there are things that you are going to offer that are like either time saving or, you know, strategic for weight and things like that. But I mean, really, it's always just like, oh, whatever. I mean, like, what? Like, I'm just the polar opposite of Robert. It's just go with the flow of.
Well, I mean, honestly, it's easy to go. Like, I go with the flow. I'm just except of what I'm just looking
What
at.
if somebody said I
Pirates.
don't want to go on Pirates?
Well, then I would just go by myself and meet up with you later. But, you know, lots of these traditions are things that you can't really do being an annual pass holder. Like, for instance, when I would go once or twice a year, like, I'd probably, like, always eat at the same place or something. Like, I can't eat the same thing every
I
time
really
I go
like to
now.
have a clam chowder bowl every time I go.
Every
It doesn't
time?
necessarily happen.
And what's funny is we almost rarely get it at Disneyland. Now we're almost always getting it at
Yeah.
California
Mhm.
Adventure.
Well, because it's just the one little. Well, no, I always forget about that second, the small, shacky. I don't know what it's called.
Fowler Harbor?
Maybe.
Across from
That
Mansion?
has the soup. Yeah. I don't know, because it's not easy. There's nowhere. Whereas at the at California Adventure, there's that whole seating area. I do really like mobile order. Makes my life a lot easier. But I do really enjoy, like, I would have clam chowder every time I go. It just always seems to taste better there. Although I really, really am disappointed with the portion size.
I used to have a tradition at California Adventure, which was it's still somewhat of a tradition. I don't do it as much, but I would always make a point to sit in my favorite spot, which is next to the fountain in Hollywood Pictures backlot or Hollywoodland. Next to the fountain where the bathrooms are. It looks like the Enid House in Haunted Hill House. I always sit right there next to the fountain, put my legs up, and enjoy myself.
Enjoy sitting down. Yeah.
Oh, also, well, now with Star Wars Land opening, I probably won't do it as much, but I would like to spend some time on that bench always in Critter Country.
I don't think you can get there right now unless you're going in there.
What is this bench?
Well, there was a bench that's right at the bottom area of the Hungry Bear.
By the bathrooms?
Yeah, further
I
down,
think I know
though,
what he's
it
talking
would
about.
face out towards the Rivers of America.
The
Sure,
back
sure, sure.
stairs
Mhm.
from the Hungry Bear.
So,
There's a new sign for the Hungry Bear restaurant
Yeah,
there.
I
It's
saw
so
it. Looks
great.
great.
yeah, so before Star Wars Land opened, I would sit there. One time I was waiting for Inthia. I sat there for about 2 hours.
Oh, very nice.
What was I doing?
I think you were having tea.
Well, to continue with counting, like I do, I've recently started to try to count all of the kids in Small World, which is
quite the feat.
It is a feat. And again, I'm sure there's counting apps. I'm sure they're fine, but I need like a physical button.
They're really not that expensive, honey, if you really
Did you look it up on Amazon?
need that.
No, I
Well,
didn't.
isn't that what the
This
cast
is
members use sometimes?
Probably. This is
We
a
just
great birthday
ordered
present
some.
for me. So
It's like $2, babe.
I'd be so happy. But you go through the attraction and you're like, is a mermaid a people? Is a platypus a people? Like, you start questioning, like, what am I counting here?
Is a platypus a person?
Well, you would have to
In
distinguish.
terms of, like, you're in a zone and you're, like, counting characters and you're like, oh, wait, that's not like a kid. Am I just counting kids? How technical am I getting now?
Yeah.
Got to decide before you go on.
Yeah,
Kids
you
are
really
characters.
do. Commit to it. Stick to it the whole way through.
I will say another one I thought of. Every time I go on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, I take a quick glance at the fireplace floor, which I've always,
I love
always
that.
liked that effect.
The embers.
Yeah.
It's a good one. On Peter Pan, I always look at the bricks that Nana has set up in the nursery because they say Peter Pan on them.
Isn't there another one that says like Walt Disney or something?
They say Disney. They say Pan on one side and they
where's
spell
that?
out Disney on like.
That's kind of
'cause you
neat.
can see, like two sides. So, yeah.
Oh, now I'm always trying to see all of the hidden things in the Peter Pan queue because I never realized that they were there, hidden in the wood, and now I'm just obsessive about it. And I'm always seeing something new. That's a testament to good design.
I will say, besides the facade of Pirates of the Caribbean, another one of my most popular photo spots is Monstro the Whale
Oh,
at Storybook Land.
yeah. That's a good one.
I'm going to make it a new one. But now that I know they play that wonderful Epcot music,
Oh,
at,
yeah.
The entrance to Space Mountain right there, I'm going to make a trek over there every time to go listen to it.
Yeah.
What about on Indiana Jones? Do you always pull the rope?
No.
Do you...
I always do the...
Bamboo.
I don't. I've become, again, it
Too
goes
much
back to
germs?
germs. Yeah, no. I don't.
But I don't go on Indiana Jones every time.
Yeah.
Do you always look back to see the country bear heads?
Yes.
on
Yes,
the
that's a good one.
On poop?
Not
Yeah, and I'll
always,
usually
yeah.
try to tell people too.
If I'm with someone who that I haven't been on it with previously, I will point it out to them.
Yeah. That's like a nervous tick. I have to look at them. And then I also, so that's a good one. When 10, 15 years ago, Monsters, Inc. used to have a Tower of Terror.
Towel.
Yeah. A Hollywood Tower Hotel towel in the gym. And so I always look back to see if it's in there again. And
It's not.
I haven't seen it in years.
You always
I
look
think
for
I
the...
always, I do. I will say, I guess that I think I always do look for it, thinking it will appear
One
or
day.
be there, or maybe I missed it somehow.
Yeah.
Do you always try to find the Haunted Mansion wallpaper in Randall?
No, I didn't realize that was there.
Well, I mean, you can't.
Oh, when Boo is banging his head at the end, that's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah, he'll turn
but it
into
did
a
make me
person.
think that in the Haunted Mansion, when it's Haunted Mansion Holiday, I'm always looking for the Monkey Bride.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Monkey Bride is always hidden, and then you always like looking at the Oogie Boogie with the symbols. I'm always trying to look for a new ghost that I'd never seen before in the graveyard. Graveyard, I'm always finding something new, or it's at least something I've forgotten about, which is good.
Well,
Always looking for the hidden Mickey on the place settings on the table.
yeah, I do look for that.
I noticed that I can't really tell in the hallway anymore that the door is bowing out from the inside.
Oh.
I think it's like too dark, or my eyes aren't adjusting fast anymore and I'm older.
Or maybe it's not bowing out.
I always look at that little table that's in the hallway scene where the portrait of the ghost host is.
Yeah, the table, I like looking at the end table right before you go into the attic out of the ballroom scene. There's an end table at the
Yeah.
end of that corridor that
With
I
a
always
hat
look
on
at. Is there? Oh.
But yeah, the little table that I like in the hallway scene has a little lamp on it. And I really like these lamps. They're also in the queue. They look like little socks, like little feet with socks on them.
They do. Yeah,
I like those
They
lamps.
look like little light up socks.
I'll push my stroller down the middle of Main Street, even though I know the wheels are going to fall into the trolley track. I almost do it to try not to get the wheel stuck.
Anything at Disney World you can think of? For me, I try to keep it a tradition, but it's all dependent on my flight and what's open. But I try to make the very first thing I do Spaceship Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And like getting there that evening.
I think the first time we went, I saw a bug in the airport almost right away. And because in the back of my mind, I was like, I'll bet you there's bugs all over the place here. And sure enough, I looked on the ground and there was a big bug. So I'm almost always looking for big bugs at the airport when I land. And then all we do pretty much when we're taking a bus anywhere is look for alligators in the swamplands everywhere. Where are the alligators? Where are they? I think I have a tradition of asking people if they want to do the canoes with me. That's probably a real tradition.
And Robert
that I do
was
a
like,
lot.
yes.
I do always make note of bulbs that are out, especially on Main Street.
And then do you say, what would be so mad?
No.
That's something I do. I do like walking around the backside of Big Thunder and looking through the Mine Train through Nature's Wonderland tunnel. I guess it's not a tradition, but it's almost like an endorphin release when some things happen. So it's like if we're leaving the park and it's busy, but like maybe the fireworks aren't going on yet, but the back pathway is open, it's almost like, oh yes, this is so great.
See, I don't like going through the back pathway.
I'll do it just because it's open. Because you get to see where all the Jungle Cruise boats dock and you can see all their names at once.
Yeah, but it's bad show. I mean, I know they have to do it because it's too crowded, but Walt would not like that.
And same thing up the other way through the livery stable.
Yeah. At least they dolled it up with attraction posters.
That's right. Yeah, remember you used to walk through before and then you just sort of like come out by the restrooms? It's so weird.
I will say whenever I am making my way through the toy shop at the Emporium, I look up at the dolls and I look for the Dick Van Dyke doll, my favorite one.
Oh.
Because it looks just like Dick Van Dyke, like he was shrunk into a doll size.
That's right. We were just looking at all of those. I also like to look at the animatronics of the, well, I guess they're not audio animatronics, but they're slightly motion mannequins.
Oh yeah, those are great.
Up in the Emporium with the kid getting his haircut.
Oh, it's a really good one.
But they haven't been moving for a while, have they?
I don't know.
You don't go often enough for me to know.
I definitely avoid the Emporium because it's so crowded.
And now it looks like a Hot Topic t-shirt wall at the other end, and it's very bizarre to me.
When I go on the Little Mermaid ride, the poles in the line that keep the chains up, they have a little like seashell filigree on top of it or something. I always turn them to see if they're loose.
You're just touching things all willy-nilly all over the park. It's driving me bonkers when you talk about it.
And then we hold hands.
Different? Oh, never mind.
I'm trying to think of things. Except there's things that I like to do, but I wouldn't call them traditions or things that I have to do every time. Like ringing the bell in the fire station.
I definitely think if it were like grasslands, how you walk from Disneyland to the parking structure, I would have like almost a perfect path. I think I just pretty much hit the exact same parts of Downtown Disney as I wind my way through the back all the time.
You're like Danny Torrance in The Shining going backwards on his own footsteps.
So yeah, I think that's about it for my traditions.
Do you guys have traditions?
Let us know in the comments below.
Do you guys like to look for particular things on Pirates of the Caribbean like me?
Or is there a ride that you do the crazy things that Robert does on Pirates for you?
You know, also on Pirates, in the captain's quarters scene, there was a cup that I saw one time that I'm sure had the initials W-E-D, WED, for Walt Elias Disney. And I haven't seen it in years. It could have been my imagination, but I'm pretty sure it was there. And one day, I'll find it again.
On Stranger Tides. Right? Well, for real, if you do have any traditions that you would like to share, let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Remain Seated Please, on Twitter at Remain Seated Pulse, that's PLS, and be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. And if you have time, leave us a comment, just like Alert Ha, where it says, "Excellent job, guys. So glad you're back. We've missed you. Keep up the great work."
Very nice.
Thanks, Alert.
So, Susie, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me at on Instagram at a little sprinkle of Disney.
And Inthia, where can we find you on
You
Facebook?
can find me at Remain Seated, Please.
Very good. So until next time, I'm David.
I'm Robert.
I'm Inthia.
I'm Susie.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye, everybody. Susie,
I said good
said
night.
say it again.
Why?
Good night.
There. That wasn't so bad. Was it?
I'll see you all a little later.
You may not survive to pass this way again.
Time to be moving along.
Hurry back.
And barrel around to see us again.
But yeah, that's the first of my little habits. What about you guys? What do you guys have? Anything? Anything at the near
No,
the
that's
entrance?
it. So you can find us on. Just a quick episode.
I mean, I could continue with
You
more
guys
of my
remember when we
habits.
go to the left?
Yeah, we all know that you could, my dear.
Leave a comment below.
Yeah,
I didn't
here
do
we go.
that in the last one. I didn't tell people to leave a comment.
Clear your throat. Do it.
I'm gonna tell you how to do Disneyland right.
We used to do that too when we first met.
Yeah.